Hello, everybody. It's Timothy Toju here. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Timothy Toju. Today, I am excited to have Jess Tetu with us. She's a Canadian entrepreneur. She's been making waves across the beauty industry, across the country. And, she's making an impact on the community as well through her philanthropy work. She's got many different companies that she runs. She's the sole owner of five Just For You day spas in Saskatchewan and in Alberta. I believe she's the CEO of Reese Canada as well, which is a beauty brand, iconic Betty jewelry. She's got a consulting company. There's so much that she does, and she also runs a nonprofit charity as well. Jess is an absolute fantastic person. I've been following her online for quite some time, and I've had the opportunity to meet her a couple of times. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with her today. Jess, thank you for coming on the podcast today to talk to our audience about your journey. How are things with you?
I'm very good. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
No worries. So Just For You Day Spa, that was the initial company that you started. And was that
Yes.
started here in Regina, or was that in Saskatoon?
So there actually was an original Just For You with a different owner. So I think that opened late 80s or very early 90s is kind of when the concept came to life. And then it moved from a couple of little one-room studios into where our original location is now in Saskatoon. I started working there right out of college, just kind of as like something I saw the ad and I was like, going into like a legal field is actually where I wanted to go. And I saw the ad and I thought, I've got a new baby at home. This might be just like something part-time that I can like, just do on the side. And so I started working at the spa, very young, really part-time, really having no idea what I was kind of getting into, other than I was incredibly interested in the industry. I was very interested in the beauty industry and the wellness industry. And, I started working there and it was an almost immediate, like I fell in love with it immediately. And so it was a very immediate feeling that, I think I need to go in this direction instead of, the legal field. And so it kind of just started there. I was very, very young. I was just turned, I think I was 18 or 19 years old when I started there. And so that's kind of how it started. And then I purchased the business in 2007, sorry. And I was really young, 21, 22 years old.
Wow, that's amazing. Not too many 18-year-olds or even 21-year-olds would know what they want to do right off the bat. So for you, like you said, you knew right away. Was it just a feeling, or was it just like, how did you know?
Well, I wasn't an average, 18, 19-year-old. I had been on my own since I was 15 years old. I have a really long background and back journey, which I do lots of public speaking about, but I come from a family of extreme addictions. And so by the time I was 15 years old, I'm from a small town. We had lost our home. And so I relocated to Saskatoon on my own as an adult, although I was only 15. And so by the time I was 18 or 19, I had already been living on my own and functioning as an adult for many years. So it didn't feel like I was 18 or 19. I remember at the time, thinking I knew everything about the world as you do at that age. And so I think when I was working in the spa and I saw the kindness that we got to share, that was primarily the first thing that really was attractive to me, is that it was just so different than anything I had ever seen in my life. I came from this childhood of chaos and dysfunction, and we were in shelters when we were kids, and violence, and this world in the spa environment was so different than anything I'd ever experienced, because it was so relaxing and calm and tranquil. And I didn't know calm and tranquil. So I immediately fell in love with it. I fell in love with giving clients this experience of happiness and a space where they could escape the chaos that was going on in their world and just kind of be themselves and relax and shut their mind down for a little while. And I fell in love with it very, very quickly. And so I knew in my head that the legal direction was probably smarter, but in my heart, I was so sold on what I was doing in this world, tranquility and wellness, that for whatever reason, I just knew I had to kind of risk it. And so it just was a very natural and organic decision because I was just so in love with it. And I remember I got offered a position to go travel with this judge as a paralegal because that's what I'd gone to college for. And I had my resignation for the spa written up. I think of this all the time, actually, and I've been there for like 20 some years now. And I had this resignation written up because I knew it was the smart. It was like triple the pay, just a bit, a grown up big girl job. And so I had my resignation and I was ready to resign and I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. All day I kept seeing, some of our favorite clients would come in and I just couldn't do it. I knew that there was something on this path for me, whether it was there or elsewhere. I knew that I was in the right spot. I can't explain why. I just knew. It was like 100% of me knew that I would be making a mistake if I left. And so I committed, obviously, that day that, okay, I'm not going the legal direction. I've turned down probably the biggest opportunity that I'll have in that career at this age. And within days, the previous owner and I started discussing me purchasing the business. And then that was about a 2-year process of it kind of coming to life, of talking about it to it coming to life. And that's what happened.
Wow, that's amazing. A lot of people would have taken the money and run,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you followed
Yeah.
your heart, and obviously it's paid off immensely for you, which is amazing. So now, from where you took over Just For You Day Spa from to now, would you say there's been a change behind the brand, or what would be the real, I guess, the real value or the real heart behind the brand now that was different from what it was before?
I think the only thing that's the same is part of the name. Everything else changed. Absolutely everything else. It ran very differently. It had a very different mission statement, morals, different values. We just were very, very different in how we chose to run the business. And my dream was always to grow the business. It was a very, very small, uh, I think we had 4 or 5 employees at the time that I took over. Now we have over 200 employees. So we've expanded. My goal right from day one was that, like, someday I'm going to grow this business. We're going to be in different cities. I'm going to create careers in this industry that haven't been there before in our province. And the reason I wanted to do that, one of the main reasons I wanted to do that, was not only to give people opportunity to have these amazing careers, but when people would hear that I chose the spa and, painting nails is what people always used to joke around and say to me, like, "See, you guys paint nails there?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no, like, there's so much more to it." And people, I didn't get the best, most supportive feedback at the beginning because it was kind of looked down upon, like the industry wasn't as valid or as rewarding or as important or as valuable as maybe going into the legal field. And I didn't like that because I knew what we were capable of and I knew what we were doing for these clients every day. And I knew that the beauty industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I knew that it needed some presence there and to, like, show the world that actually this industry does stand on its own and it's important. It's changing lives in many ways. And so I wanted to create careers for people that maybe didn't see it as a career. And so I knew that right from the beginning. So I always had the goal to expand. And then we started expanding. I expanded. My first expansion was in the original location. We just took on a little bit more space, did a rebrand so that it felt like mine, because it wasn't my personality. It was purple and peach colored and floral patterns everywhere. And it was just very not me. There was like cheetah print chairs and, like, nothing against that. Maybe that was, the way it was at that time, but when it just wasn't me. And so I did a complete rebrand, new logo, new design, and a new brand of the business to feel like it was mine. It was my baby. And so then in 2011, we found a beautiful building downtown Regina, and we opened our second location, becoming the largest in the province of Saskatchewan. And that was an incredible feat. I almost died. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. It was way, way more than I anticipated. I had no idea, really, frankly, what I was doing in terms of expanding, especially in a city that I didn't live in. It was such a big project. It was a 15,000 square foot space, 120-year-old building that turned out to be lots of problems, as I'm sure being in real estate, knowing the, like, pipes and plumbing and all of the things that come along with a really old building. And so, but that was our first big expansion, and it did really, really well. almost immediately. People in Saskatchewan are just so supportive of entrepreneurs from this province. A couple of years later, we then opened our third location, expanding into Lloydminster, Alberta, which is where my mother's family is from. So I kind of naturally knew to go that direction. And at the time she was living there. And then we expanded again our first original flagship store in Saskatoon. We took on another significant amount of space, expanded, doubled the size. And then we actually opened another physical location in Saskatoon because we were so busy and we had that demand. And so we opened another 11,000 square foot space in Saskatoon. So that was our fourth spa, but like 10th renovation by that time, 10th expansion. And then from there, we opened our Calgary location. And since then, we've now also moved our Regina location into a bigger, even more beautiful space. We've done a couple more expansions in Saskatoon. We've done some brand changing, and lots of different things physically about the brand has changed and kind of grown over the years. But the same morals and values are there now as they were the day that I became the owner and introduced the new JFY, the new Just For You, to the world. And that is, again, careers for my client or for my staff and my team. And number two is giving our clients this place to escape, this break from the world. We're a age 12 plus facility on purpose so that you have an escape from your children. Not that you need an escape from your children, but you certainly deserve one. And so, and so even just from your job and there needs to be a place where you can go and just turn off and be yourself and just like be with your mind, be with your body. And that's what I wanted to create. And then my third mission and goal was to be able to utilize our presence and my presence as the face of the business in our community to make a direct impact in as many beautiful ways as we can. And that's always been at the heart of why I do what I do. And I still focus on that very much so to today. So, and even more so now. And what I realized early in my career as well is that the more team members we had, the more all of those three goals were being reached in a larger, grander way. And the impact was significantly higher in all three of those areas. So that was kind of my reason behind growth. I didn't need to open a location in a city I don't live in, but it wasn't easy, but it was for the right reasons.
That's amazing. As you know, this podcast is about entrepreneurship and leadership. Mm-hmm. And something that you said kind of just bring this question to mind. So you've got your brand, you've got your values of the company. You've grown from 6 employees to 200 employees. How do you ensure that your brand values are consistently reflected in everything you do through your employees, through the different locations, especially when you're not physically there?
So I think that it's important to state that this wasn't overnight. Like I worked on our original brand, really threw my heart into it, really trained the right, wonderful, incredible, beautiful people, and then was able to say, okay, you guys are solid, you're good, you've got good leadership and a manager. They've been trained and learned, and they were a part of creating the values in the mission statement too. They weren't just told what to do. They sat at the table with me. We made those decisions together. And then I was able to go, because it was running solid, and go and work on another location and do the same there. And then go work on another location and do the same there. And then now, because we're such a large operation, the directors that we choose and the managers that we choose to be in those leadership roles all were a part of writing those values and those. Our mission statement has continued to kind of grow over the years with the assistance and help and the heart of those lead people in my locations. And so now we work together to ensure that it's consistent everywhere all the time. So it's a lot of communication, a lot of mistakes. We make a lot of mistakes. We have to learn. I've learned the hard way so many times on like situations that I wish I could go back and change. I wish, I look back when I was young in my career and even how I responded to an upset customer or how I responded to an upset client or team member, and I wish I knew then what I know now, I would definitely handle things different, but you make mistakes on this journey and that's just part of it. And I own that. I was really young and immature and was learning on this road. And although my morals and values were always there and always at the heart of what I did, I know I made a mistake. I still make mistakes. I'm human, and so do my leaders. And so I think it's you try as hard as you can, you put your heart into it, you invest in really good people and a lot of really good communication and training and consistent communication, I think, is really important. We meet once a month together, all of the directors, and then they then go back and meet with their teams as a group and then individually, just to make sure we're kind of meeting the needs of everyone. And we slip sometimes because that's business. And then, we revisit it and we pick up the pieces and keep going. And there's really beautiful, wonderful days where we have like huge triumphs. And then the next day we're like, well, we tried that and that didn't work. And we fell on our faces. And, it's not about the falling down. It's about getting back up and to keep going, but to keep our morals and values and the mission statement of the business and those three core pieces kind of always at heart. We just have to consistently work on them and follow them and make sure and review them and take feedback from our customers and our staff. And we try our best to do that.
That's amazing.
As much as we can anyway.
That's amazing. When one issue that I always see and one mistake that I always see, especially with people that are the sole owner of a company, is they feel like they have to do it alone, right? And they feel like they can't rely on other people to bring those strategic ideas and things like that and come to the table and help set the vision and help set the goals and things like that of the organization. So as you were talking, that was kind of one thing that kind of stuck out to me, is that you knew right off the bat that, your leadership.
I didn't though. Right off the bat, I didn't. It took me to learn that burnout was real, and I was trying to do everything all at once. And instead of doing what I was really good at well, I was trying to do 10 things and I kind of did them poorly. And so I had to learn delegation because I almost was forced to. I didn't like it. I didn't like passing on the torch or the power. I was so terrified that if I gave a little bit of control away, that it would crash and burn. And I was pleasantly surprised when I learned, wow, other people are way better at most things than me, and being okay with that and having the confidence that I know what I'm good at. I know my strengths, but I also know my weaknesses, and I know where I can see a strength in someone and they're way better at it than I am. You need to delegate. And that was probably the most important key to my success, would be learning delegation and learning to help someone else and give them the kind of leadership and trust and support that they needed to be able to help my business, and learning that other people are really good at things and better than you are at it. And that was eye-opening to be able to say wow, she's way better at my job than I am. It can be kind of hurt your heart a little and your pride, until you realize but together we're going to crush goals like no one's business, and then it's just always a fear, I think, for new entrepreneurs. Until you do it, you realize that you're way better when you have support behind you. And you can do more, and you can do it 1,000 times better. And also, I have a very creative mind, but you put 10 other really creative minds in that room and we're coming up with something magic. We're coming up with magic for the business. And that's what I've been so lucky to have. My directors across the board have just been immensely helpful. And even we have senior therapists who've been with us for a long time, and we really value their input. And, lots of times even some of our new team members will come up with the best idea and we will implement it. So you can't take everyone's ideas, obviously, but you get some really great ones if you just listen.
That's awesome. That was, where you took that was kind of where I was going to go with my next question to you, because the beauty industry, self-care industry has been growing. It's growing. And as you know, there's more innovation and things like that is happening. So sometimes you find that companies that have been in business for a long time, they stay stagnant and they don't innovate. So how do you stay innovative and adapt to the changing market trends?
Well, I think first, I'd like to say, I think that there's a difference between being a business owner and being an entrepreneur. I think I've met a lot of business owners in my life that are very comfortable and confident with their business. I would say their business is a little box or a big box, whatever the size of the business is. And they're good with it being the shape of a square. It's the way it is. It runs. It's always run that way, and they run their business like a perfect box. An entrepreneur is well, can I add another box? Well, should it have this angle? We're always growing and passionate to change. So there's a bit of a difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. And if you're a business owner, that's great and that's amazing. But a business owner doesn't necessarily want to do new, innovative things, and that's okay. But an entrepreneur is always looking for innovative ways to be new and creative in their industry or in the business world or in their life. And that's just the nature of an entrepreneur. And if you get 10 entrepreneurs in a room, they're all going to say the same thing, like, okay, well, what's next? What am I going to do next? And what am I going to do after that? And how can I make it better? And how can I hit this goal? And it's just, I say we're wired differently because we really are. We just are always looking for that, next innovative thing. But if you're not interested in it, you're not passionate about it, you can get very stagnant. And I see that a lot of times in businesses that I coach as a business mentor now, is that they're like, I'm just stuck. I feel like I've done the same thing forever. And I'm like, okay, we got to get that passion back. We got to get the fire back in you so that you want to do it, because you can have an innovative, incredible idea in front of you. But if you don't have the energy and the passion to execute it, it doesn't matter how amazing the vision is or how amazing the idea is if you don't have the team or the energy or the passion to go do it, right? So, because the ideas are always out there. And I mean, there's someone out there making change every single day. And if you're watching and you're listening, there's guides there to show you how to keep up with your trends, but you have to look. And in the beauty industry, specifically the beauty industry, not even just the wellness side of things, trends are changing constantly. And it's very easy to just not look and keep things the same, but then you can't be shocked when, 3 years down the line, your competitor down the street is miles ahead of you.
That's true.
And that's a responsibility of an owner. And so, and as a entrepreneur, and I think part of our responsibility is to know the trends, know what's out there, what's happening around you, what are other places and other cities doing in your industry that you haven't thought of yet. You don't necessarily have to create the wheel. I don't mean go copy someone, but I mean, look at what other people are doing and be inspired by that to do something yourself. And that's how you stay current. And if you don't stay current, you can't be surprised or upset when someone surpasses you in the success lane. And some people are okay with that. Some places are like, no, this is what I've done forever. It works. I don't want to change the business model. And that's great. That's their model of business. For me, that's just never been the way I see it. I mean, there's definitely things we keep that are consistent that I'm like, I'll never change. Like for us, we're not going to go the full technology way that the beauty industry is going. I believe in there's no better feeling than like personal touch. And I think in our industry, massage therapy, facials, like using, body to body, hands to the face, massage therapy techniques that you can't be really replaced with technology. And that's kind of always been at the heart of, as much as we want to be innovative, there's pieces of it that I want to keep traditional. And so I think it's different for every business for sure, and what you want and what your goals are. But I think if you're not continuously committed to being at least a little bit innovative, you will fall behind in, the race, the entrepreneurship race, or the, competitive industries. Like, especially in my industry, there's a spa in every corner. So you have to be competitive. It's a very saturated market.
No, for sure. And I mean, you've got to be competitive, you've got to be innovative and adapt to those changing trends. But you also have to be able to reach out to your customers and stay connected with them, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what those personal.
And you want to stay true to who you are.
Yeah.
If I all of a sudden tomorrow became this technology-based spa, we would lose the essence of who we are. And so I think you really have to weigh those options of how innovative do you want to go, or do you want to just try some new trends and really listen to your customers, really listen to your team. What are your customers telling you that they want from you? What do they love? Why do they come to you? What's going to make them not come to you?
That's true.
And listening to those voices, because those, that's who pays our bills.
That's true.
Our business is nothing without our customers.
That's true. True. So how did you end up spinning out from, say, Just For You Day Spa to Reese Canada, Iconic Betty Jewelry, and
my consulting and stuff? Okay.
The consulting just from talking to you, I know the consulting makes sense. I know you can build people up, you can build leaders, you can build entrepreneurs, you can build business owners just from talking to you and from your experience. But how did you spin out to the rest of the companies?
To begin with, I started Reese Canada, and the first reason was I was sick of selling overpriced product and making nothing off of them and not really believing in what they were. So I started looking into creating our own products that at least I knew everything about what was in them, that I could get really strong behind. And we were ordering, as we got bigger, we were ordering hundreds of thousands of dollars in product. And so it just was the next smart business move. If I'm going to be ordering 500 of something, it made the most sense to be making that 500 of those items. It's significantly lower price. I mean, it's a bigger investment up front, but then you can sell them for the same price, and you could sell them for a little bit less than, the big companies that have, the manufacturer who makes it, and then the distributor, and then the salesperson, and then, like all of these levels of markup. And I could go right direct from making it to the customer and cut out all those extra costs. So instead of selling a day cream, for example, for $150 to $175, which is what we were selling, almost all of the creams that we were selling from different brands before were over $150, and now we have multiple that are like $60, $70, $80, $90, and the ones that would be $250 are now at that $120 mark. And so being able to offer them quality but at a significantly lower price for still a professional product. This wasn't drugstore product. We worked with labs and professionals, dermatologists, skincare pros, to be able to create that. And then when that started doing well, then it was just a no-brainer to be like, well, now we need to add, cosmetics, and now we should add the body product. And I started it with the main goal of skincare, which has done incredible and amazing. And we're actually doing a whole new relaunch. We've partnered with a physician and injector who is now going to work with us on some medical pieces that we're going to add in, like that are medical grade, which is just going to take the line to the next level. And we've rebranded. But we learned with the body line that we could have so much fun with it. I didn't even know until I started doing it how much I'd love it, because the cool thing about a body product line is that you get to use like fun, creative scents, and you get to like create new fun things. Like we have an orange creamsicle product that smells like creamsicles, but it's called orange dreamsicle. And then we have like pineapple mojito, and sweet Bahama sugar smells like tropical like they're just so creative and so fun, and I fell in love with it. So that line we actually have our own laboratories for, and like my team and teammates that we've hired do it right here in Saskatoon. We have a laboratory building behind my head office, and so that has become probably one of my favorite products that we get to create, just because of the cool, unique scents, and like, something that's new and popular, then we'll like launch that because it's new and fun and we can try it. And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. And I just have so much fun with it. We get to like bring in the creative ideas of our teammates. I always do of this from the spas, because they work with body products and customers all day. So we bring in a big group of team members, and we give them a room, and they basically get to play with all of these different fragrances and oils and scents, and they get to come up with like these beautiful scents. We don't name them, and then we narrow them down and vote on them. And then once we've leveled it down to, let's say, 5 new ones, then we get to vote on a name, and then that team member got to be a part of like creating a brand new scent. And it's just so fun to be able to bring our team together, and it's probably one of my favorite team building things that we do, and it's the most valuable. And again, that goes back to like utilizing more creative minds. Yes, I could sit in a room with a bunch of scents and create my own, but nothing compared to scents that they brought together. They were mixing things that I never would have even considered, and it turned out beautiful, because different minds have beautiful different ideas. And so that's probably one of my favorites. So that was the body line, and that line does incredible. And between those 3, we sell them in different spas and salons and boutiques and stuff across Canada, like pretty consistently. And then during COVID, my mind really took kind of a new direction. Obviously, we were in the industry of wellness and touching people. So the one thing you can't do during COVID, or you couldn't do, was touch anyone. You couldn't be around anyone. So we were shut down. It was very devastating. I cried every day for a month and a half. And we laid off all of our teammates. I wasn't sure if we were going to survive. I didn't know what to do. And so we got real creative and started selling all the product that we had on our shelves, and doing like drop-offs to people's houses. And we were selling it on Instagram and making at-home care packages for people to like give themselves a spa day. And so ever since I was little, one of the other things that I was inspired about, besides the beauty industry, which was kind of introduced to me by my grandmother, who just always had her makeup done, always had her nails done, but she always let me play with her costume jewelry. And so I always wanted to have a jewelry line. I've always wanted that since I was a kid, but it was just always on the back burner. Jump ahead during COVID, I sat thinking, like, we sell jewelry in the spas. Why am I not just doing my own line? Like, this is silly. We sell so much of it. And it was mostly because I didn't have the time. Well, what did COVID give us? Time. And so I sat and thought about it really deeply, and thought, what could I do with this line that would be meaningful to what everybody is going through right now, not only with the creation of each piece, but like a give back piece, because everything I've done in always, whether it was the cosmetics, the skincare, the spas, there's always a give back component, meaning like to charity or fundraisers, community events, those types of things. And so the one thing I noticed really for myself and for my teammates and everybody around us was everybody's mental health was declining during COVID and continues to this day. And so I decided to make a commitment with this jewelry line to donate back to the Canadian Mental Health Association. And so we do now, still to this day, every year, just make a donation based on like pieces that we sell and things. And then I do events where I speak, and I'll do those for complimentary, and just made a commitment to that direction and that focus, which has been really beautiful and something I'm really proud of. But the line, I had no idea would take off the way that it has, and it has become its own complete brand and its own little monster, I call it, because it is very much its own little entity now. So we are in like 45 different retailer locations, I think, now across Canada, with new applications coming in every day. We sell a ton of it in the spas, but we sell so much online, and it's just becoming its own beautiful business. And sometimes it just organically takes off. I mean, I thought maybe that would happen with like the cosmetics, for example. I was like, oh, this is going to be a hit, you know, and it didn't take off the way that the jewelry does. Sometimes you just got to try something and it'll work, and sometimes it doesn't work. And I can say I'm very blessed that it did. It took off and it's doing amazing, and I love it.
That's awesome. I mean, if you don't try, you won't know, right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Mm-hmm. And I've had people say over there, yeah, but everything that you've tried works. I'm like, no, I just don't share all the failures. Like, I've had so many fails. I've fallen on my face so many times. I invested probably $150,000 into the cosmetic design, the displays, the projects, because when I started it, Sephora wasn't a big thing in Saskatchewan. And then now it just doesn't work like it used to. And so we're cutting that line completely back and doing kind of more of a basic line instead of having like, 500 different colors of things and whatever. We're cutting it back, scaling it back big time, and putting our investment back into the jewelry and into the skincare. So that was a huge investment fail in terms of it did well, but it didn't do what I thought it was going to do or what I hoped it would do. And that's just business. And that's just the way that it is. You got to pick up pieces and move on and try something else.
Yeah. No, you don't wallow in the sorrow that it didn't work. You've got to just keep on moving.
Yeah. And I'll make smarter decisions. Next time I won't start so big.
Because you've learned from it. Yeah. Okay. So the names of your companies like Leah Reese, Iconic Betty Jewelry, they all sounds like they mean something to you. How did you come up with them?
So pretty much everything, if you break it down and really dive into my world, pretty much everything in my lines relates back to someone, somewhere, or something from my journey and from my past. I find that was my kind of little way of just these like little reminders of how far I've come and how far I can go. And then also to other people, like, I came from living in women's shelters and being on my own at 15 and having no food and no money and losing a family member to addictions and all these crazy things. And I did it. I didn't do it with family backing money. I didn't do it with winning the lottery. It was a lot of really hard work and sacrifice and commitment. And I think that's important for people to know that it doesn't matter where you come from, you can do something with yourself. And so for me, those little reminders are really important to me, and no one else really knows them unless I share about it. But it's kind of a fun little way for me, my journey kind of is weaved into all my businesses. So Leah Reese Canada, my daughter's name is Elia, Ellia, and her middle name is Reese. I just loved that name. I named my two favorite girl names. I combined Ellie and Mia were my two favorite girl names. And I said, if I ever have a girl, I'm going to name her something with those names. And so I came up with Elia. And then when I started the lines, I thought, well, what if one day when she grows up, she hates them or doesn't want to be in the beauty industry? Like, I don't want to name it completely, like fully after her and then have her not approve when she's older. So I thought that was a choice that she got to make. So I broke it down and named it Leah Reese, which is just a portion of her name. And then added the Canada when we started sharing and selling across Canada. So the big thing with Leah Reese Canada actually is that, because it used to just be Leah Reese Cosmetics, Leah Reese Botanicals, Leah Reese for the different cosmetics, body, skincare. And I added Leah Reese Canada because we got actually invited to go to the Emmy Awards. We were invited to come to the like actual Emmys in Los Angeles, California, and be there representing. And they only picked one brand from Canada, and they chose us, and it was just so mind blowing. And so I went there saying like, I don't want it to be even misunderstood that we are not from Canada. Like I want everyone to know we are Canadian, because I'm proud to be Canadian. And I added the Canada on the bottom just to show like, this is where we've come from. The small town girl, you know, from a small 400 person town is here in Hollywood. And so we added the Canada, and then it just stuck, and then we kept it. So that's Reese. And then iconic Betty is named after my grandmother, who just recently passed away, but she was the one who introduced me to the like nails and makeup and jewelry and all of those things. And so it was a no-brainer for me. I knew I wanted to use her name. And so we came up with ideas, and one of my team members actually suggested the word iconic, and I just loved it. And then so I went to her and I said like, look, Grandma, I love you. And keep in mind, we have no blood relation. She like basically just adopted us. We were friends of, or my mom was a friend of her daughter's, and she just like took us in as her grandchildren. So absolutely no obligation to us at all. But I don't know any different. She's always been my grandma since I was born. Anyway, and so she's just the most caring, wonderful, beautiful human on earth. And she was so honored and like just mind blown that I would do that for her. And so I let her name the first collection after all the women that she loved in her life. So the first collection of jewelry was like all her best friends' names. Wow. And her nieces and her granddaughters and her best friends and her teacher and her mom, you know, all these people. So and up until she just passed away, she still was suggesting names. Like I'd get a text message with like 2 new names, and we'd add them to the new collection, you know. And she was just so honored. And so when we made the logo, even I went to her and I said, what do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like? And she's like, well, I kind of like the feel of like old vintage, you know, vintage jewelry, because the costumey jewelry she had that I played with was very vintage looking, very grand, and you know. And so I thought, okay, well, we have to use that in the branding. And so I took that to our designers, and they came up with like kind of a vintage spin on the iconic, and then we used a version of her signature in the Betty. And so no one else would really know that, except for her, you know, her and I and our family. But it's just such a beautiful brand, and it's become so much more than I ever could have anticipated. And yeah, I would say it's probably one of my favorite things that I do, in all of the things that I do. And yeah, I just think it's just, and to know that it's named after her, especially now that she's passed away, and it's just in honor of her. And now we all wear it and we love it, and it's carried in different stores. And I just think she was so proud of it, to see it in like national stores across the country. And she was so proud that it was donating money back to mental health. And yeah, I just think it was such an easy tribute to do. And to me, it just means more when it's like the people that inspired me.
Yeah.
We did in the cosmetic line, we did an inspirational 12 collection, which is probably the most popular line in all of the cosmetics. It was a lip gloss collection, and I went to all 12 of the most inspirational women in my life that were, you know, growing up, and said to them, look, I'm naming this piece after you. Pick a charity that means something to you, and we'll donate, you know, for a year or something to that charity directly. And it was so beautiful, because the people that I reached out to, multiple of them, had no idea that I felt that way about them. They had no idea that I would ever think that they were inspirational to me. One, for example, was a teacher of mine. One was my best friend's mother, and one was my dad's best friend and cousin. And these were women that made such an impact on my life without really knowing that they made an impact on my life. And I thought, how often in life do we forget to acknowledge those people?
That's true.
And how much does it mean to them just to be acknowledged, you know? And so I did that, and it was just received so well, and it just felt really good. And in the end, we were able to give lots. So
that's awesome. Let's talk about the philanthropy thing before we end.
Yeah.
So you've got the 471 Recovery Resources, which is your nonprofit charity. What was the inspiration behind that?
So it's not a charity, it's a nonprofit, which I have to always clarify, because getting charity status is like so hard and like next to impossible, but it is a nonprofit. So there's a lot that I feel around this. So my father struggled with alcohol addiction since the time I was about 10 years old. By the time I was 15, like I said, we lost our house. We were in and out of shelters. It was a really rough upbringing with struggling with a family of addictions. My dad lost his battle to addictions very, very tragically. It was a very public, very tragic story. And then my siblings struggled with addictions. My son's father, my previous husband, before my husband that I'm with now, struggled also with addictions and mental health. And I just thought, I've never struggled with addictions myself, yet it's impacted my life in so many ways. And then I started looking around at the people around me and how much it impacts every single person on this earth in one way or another, mental health or addictions, or they're related to someone or know someone or struggle with it personally. And I thought Google shouldn't be the only resource that people have when they're looking for help. Yeah. People should be able to know what exists. I lived this life of it. I'm a smart girl and I had no idea what was out there in terms of support. I had no clue. I had no idea that there were private facility treatments. I didn't know that there was public free things that you could attend. I didn't know that there was things you could apply for and that there were groups and support groups, and I just had no idea. And I thought, if my family in this small town, A, had the resources available, or B, were comfortable and felt safe enough to talk about the problem, maybe things wouldn't have ended up the way that they did. And I think the more we talk about it and the more we make it okay for people to ask for help, maybe, that's one life that we might change or save. And so it's hard to do a lot in that world because it is a very uphill battle and you do deal with a lot of pushback from the community. It is still kind of has this stigma around it that you don't talk about it. You don't, it should be public. People that are struggling with addictions have a bad rap regardless of how kind and wonderful they are or were, and so it's something that I think we just got to continue to talk about and continue to bring resources forward for. And so in regards to what we do at 471, my goal has always just been to do what we can, when we can, where we can. And so we've done things like raise money to actually put people through treatment that couldn't afford it. We have put family members through counseling that have, been like a child like me that was raised in a home with addictions that needed that counseling. We've done clothing drives where we collected hundreds of winter gear like jackets and boots and mitts and toques and given them out to the lower income or struggling people of our communities. That was huge. Changed my life. Just one of the drop-offs, a man started digging through the bag. It was about 40 below and I was like fully covered in like full gear as we were out delivering the stuff. And this man had no socks or boots or like no shoes on. His feet were completely frozen. And whether or not you struggle with addictions or mental health, you deserve the basic human needs. And my father, that's actually how my father passed away. He froze to death on a really, really cold night. And so it's just something that shouldn't happen in this day and age, in my opinion. And so people are giving away these jackets and coats and donating them anyway. Let's get them in the hands of the right people. So that was one of the things we've done. Fundraisers of like for the food bank. We've done drop-offs of actual food. We've done all sorts of things. I speak in high schools a lot about this topic in particular, because these children, and I know this because I speak in these schools and they talk to me, are in the homes of every kid, or every third kid in every school that I've talked to. There's a couple of kids per area that I'm, talking to that are living in home with this, and they think that there's no future and that there's no hope and there's no like escaping it, or there's no help. And then what happens to those kids? They follow suit and they do the same thing, and not because they can't get better, they just don't know any better. Don't know how. And when you're shown it, you're taught it, you live it, that's normal. And so I think it's just important to have those conversations, and wow. So that's really the meaning behind 471. The name came from, because people are always like, what a weird name. 471 was the house number of our house that I had growing up, that we lost because of my dad's addiction, and our inability to be able to pay our bills. And that's where most of my awful memories come from as being a child, but also where I was taught good values and core values. And to me, it's a regular number It's nothing special in terms of like the name, the number. That's why I did it, because 471 is just an average number, but it's just the average family that doesn't look like anything should be wrong that struggles with this. And it's inside of the homes of regular average people. It's in everyone's life somehow, some way. And so I wanted it to be just like a, generic number, and to remind people that it's like, might not be the flashy person that's making a scene. It might be the quiet home down the street that no one had any idea about. And so that's kind of where the name came from. And it's a kind of tribute back to the house that I grew up in,
Wow.
and a reminder of why I do it.
That is absolutely amazing. And is there a website for the company if someone wants to go donate?
So I took the website down because it's mostly just me and a handful of volunteers. And it was like so overwhelming that we couldn't do it. And I'm like, I don't want to shut down and not be able to do it at all. So I took the site down, and now it's just kind of, I'm trying to regroup a new volunteer team of people that may want to join, that would be able to support and do these things in their areas. And I mean, it's something that, it's just little things, like I said, when we can, where we can. We go to Habitat for Humanity, and we've done stuff at the Reese, we've helped build the houses. We go and do all these little things in the community. And we used to volunteer at the lighthouse when it was open here in Saskatoon, and those little things. And I just need to try to rebuild our volunteer team again, so that we can kind of like relaunch. But in the meantime, we still exist. When people message on social media primarily, or to me directly, I give them like lists of resources constantly. And it is literally me on the other end of that message saying like, I'm not a professional in this field, but here's, Brad at this number, call him, he'll help you with this. Here's, Joanne at this number, call her, she'll help you there. And giving them direct contact instead of being like, Google it and look for some help, And so I would love to do more with it, but I have to be okay with just, doing what we can when we can, because we lack the manpower, frankly. So hopefully, fingers crossed, someday we'll be able to do a whole lot more than we do now. But I think the impact that we're making quietly is also very helpful. And I don't share a lot of the stuff we do, because I don't think that's right to be like, oh, well, look at the food we're dropping off to this homeless man. Like, I'm not. So we do a lot of it quietly. And then we kind of get loud when it's like, hey guys, where's your winter jackets? I want them, that kind of stuff. So, but I have big dreams for it. So we'll see what happens in the future. But for now, one day at a time, one family at a time is enough for me.
Amazing. Amazing. All right. I always ask the same question at the end of all my conversations. And that is, if you've got your top 5 tips to any business owner that wants to become an entrepreneur, or anyone that wants to kind of follow their path into entrepreneurship or leadership, what would you say is your top 5 tips?
Okay, so I actually had published my 7 keys to success, and I've actually now grown into like 13 keys. So to narrow down to 5 will be hard, but I think number 1, get inspired in whatever area it is. If you don't know what you want to do, and you don't know what career path you want to go down, but you want to be an entrepreneur, get inspired. Start watching other entrepreneurs, start following businesses on social media, find out what other people are doing, what makes your heart beat fast, what are you excited about, what do you get passionate about. Get inspired, go to speakers, listen to podcasts, read magazines, read books, inspire yourself, fill that tank full of inspiration. Education would be number 2, making sure that like what you're talking about in your industry. I don't believe in the like fake it till you make it. You gotta know what you're talking about, and get invested in your education in that industry, or in that field, or in even just entrepreneurship. There's a lot of things that you don't get taught in business classes and things. So go talk to people, have actual conversations. Number 3 would be network, building that network around you of like-minded individuals and business minds. Sit at the table with the people who are doing the things that you want to do. Ask them for coffee. You'd be surprised who will say yes to that coffee and say like, yeah, I'll give you some feedback, because guess what? They were where you were once upon a time. And if they say no, that's okay. Don't get your feelings hurt. Move on, ask somebody else. They just might be too busy. I get asked a lot. So that's why I say that, because I pass them on to someone else sometimes. But ask for those conversations, shake hands, introduce your business model, sit in the rooms where other people are doing what you want to do, and really create your network. Have a person in a printing company and in a marketing company, and know some people in the media, and get to know people at a bank and an accountant and like build your network so people know who you are. People support other people. They don't just support businesses, they support other people. Build your network. It's probably one of the most important pieces that I teach my clients. That was number 3. Number 4, hire a mentor or coach. Honestly, life-changing. It was life-changing for me. That's why I do it, because there's just something to be said about having somebody in your corner that's got your back, that you can bounce ideas off of, that who can give you genuine advice that isn't biased because they don't work for you. They're not a teammate, they're not an employee, they're not your husband, they're not your children, they're not your best friend who maybe doesn't understand the concept. One thing I learned early in my career is that some of my girlfriends just didn't understand the way my mind thought about my business. And so I had to talk to other business owners. My husband doesn't understand a lot of the things I do in business. He kind of, because he just isn't an entrepreneur that way. And so you got to go to the people who know what you're talking about. And the conversation is just different. And so having that mentor or the coach in your corner is big. They also can give you advice and suggestions and walk you through the really difficult steps. Half of the battle is the fear of failure, and having somebody there to talk you through it with a experienced mind and have that support system is the biggest piece for having a coach. But also like finding the holes in your business that you're not willing to see, finding the problems in your business that maybe you didn't notice before. So having a coach is just priceless. And then number 5, always know there's no other way around it. I think every entrepreneur should do it, every business owner, and that is the give back piece. I think that it is our responsibility as professionals and as people of this community and successful people of this community to support the community that supports us. I think that if I expect customers in this world to come and support me and my business and my family, I better darn well get out there and support my community as well, and whatever that looks like. I think it is so important for the purpose of, if our community doesn't thrive, where does that leave you in your business? Your business won't thrive. It's so important. And there's a lot of reasons why it's important. Obviously, the feel good piece is just like the reward at the end. It's good for marketing. It's good for your accountant is going to like it. There's a lot of business reasons why you should do it if you don't have a direct connection like I do to something specific. There's a lot of reasons, but it is your responsibility. And customers, when they're looking at 2 businesses and one really cares about what's happening in their customers' life, they're the ones that are supporting your kids' hockey team, and they're the ones that are at the charity event buying a ticket. Maybe they don't have a $10,000 check to write, that's fine, but they'll buy a $50 ticket to your kids' steak night. That it speaks volumes. And when they have 2 customers in front of them, guess who they're going to choose? Or 2 businesses, sorry, in front of them, or Amazon as a comparison. Who do you think they're going to choose? Be a good person and give back. It's spread the wealth kind of is my mindset. But I think it is so important. It is the most important piece of business. Is you should always have some sort of give back component at one point or another. And if you say you can't afford it, you're doing it wrong, because it doesn't cost anything to do a jacket collection or a food drive, or it's not about the money. The money part's easy. It's easy to cut a check. It's that no one says you have to cut a check. Go spend your time. And if you don't have the time, then use your connections. Ask on Facebook if anybody's got winter jackets or old wedding dresses and grad dresses and prom dresses that you can donate to, like the Princess Shop, for example. Or there's ways to do it. If you've decided you can't do it, it's because you're choosing not to. There's always a way to find a give back. I'm very obviously passionate about that angle of my business, but I think it just is a piece of the entrepreneurship and business owner responsibility.
Thank you so much. You have been absolutely amazing. I think there's so many things that you shared today that a lot of people will resonate with and can even learn from. So I really thank you so much
in
the podcast. And, for people out there that are listening, make sure your next spa day, you go to Just For You Day Spa for your next spa date. And even if you're looking for your next public speaker for your company or for your event, reach out to Jess Tetu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.